Good morning, sir. Good morning, buddies. Our topic is all about forensic toxicology. So we have two objectives. First on our list is to evaluate the importance of poison isolation in forensics. So dito, himay-himay natin kung gaano ba kaimportante itong poison isolation na to. And second is to determine the different types of poisoning and classification of poisons. So let's start with the word toxicology. When we define the word toxicology, it simply means that a branch of science which treats poisons, their origin, physical and chemical properties, physiological action, treatment of their noxious effect, and their method of detections. When we say in other words, we are going to familiarize the different classification of poisons. So it is important that when we talk about poisons, we're not just going to be familiarizing the entire nature of poisons, but we have also to identify the noxious effects as well as on how they can kill or affect individuals. When sinabi nating noxious effects, ito yung nakakalasong epekto. So that's it for poisons. So let's move on to classification of poisons. So poison is also classified as isolation on or how poisons are generated. The first group of poisons, we call it a volatile. Simply means that they can volatile, or a very good example of this volatile is they are strong in odor, fumes, that when you open a container, it will suddenly fill up the entire room with odor, that chemical found in a container. These chemicals are all isolated by the distilled procedure. When you say that distilled procedure, it's simply just like when you distilled your water, when you distilled your alcohol. It is now. So when you separate the impurities and when you harbor this form of particular liquid, most of the time those volatile are in liquid form. Like for example, phenol, phenol, where phenol is which the primary ingredient is antiseptic solution, which is the Lysol, and also we have the alcohol, where the primary ingredients is alcoholic drinks. Is alcohol is a poison? The answer is yes. We're not just only talking on ethyl alcohol, but all form of alcohol as well as which been through this distillation, like methyl alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, butyl alcohol, and all those other form of alcohol. So let us also consider the carbon tetrachloride, or CHC. And then, so those are not strong in odor and they would not volatilize. We called it a non-volatile poison. So what are the example of this non-volatile poison? We're talking about alkaloids, synthetic chemicals that are produced in laboratory, and lastly the organic acid like ionic acid, carbonic acid. Those are the examples of acid. It might not be purely acid, but it is actual example of non-volatile poison. So let's move on to metallic. From the word itself, metal. so we call it as a metallic. The following we're talking about is silver, mercury, and they are poisons that would require isolation procedure. So the next is, and lastly, the special isolation procedure. These are poison that would require special isolation procedure, and these are basically fall into acid and alkali, and also the salt extracted with water, and also salt that are actually extracted coming from the process known as the dialysis. So that's it for according to isolation. So let's move on to according to pharmacological actions. And so what would be the effect of this poison in our body? First is the local actions. If volatile poisons is found in one part of our body, then it stays there. It will not come and distributed. So if you made a contact with poisons on your skin and that area where you made a contact, it will find a exertion of effect of the poison of that particular part where contact was made. And we also considered that we're talking also about the volatile oils, and we're also talking to skin irritants. So the second one is the action after absorption. There are some poisons that after absorption process, and that's the time they can feel a effect, like for example, a corrosion, irritation, and even formation of blisters. And this one are very common when you get contact with contact with these alkaloids and glucosides. So last on our list is heavy metals. When we talk about heavy metals, it is definitely there are commonly example, namely known as the phosphorus, arsenic, and mercury. These are the examples that we're going to consider. So let's move on to types of poisoning. So there are many ways that poison can occur. And first on our list is accidental poisoning. Accidental poisoning is taken without intention to death. Or sa madaling salita, aksidente. There's no intention of poisoning. Pag sinabi nating accidental poisoning, ito yung walang intensyong patayin yung isang tao. Isang example. Second one is suicidal poisoning. Suicidal poisoning is taken voluntarily for purpose of taking on one's own life. So simply means that clearly has a intention to end his or her life voluntarily. And third one, homicidal poisoning. Homicidal poisoning is given willfully with intent to cause death to the victim, which is basically willingly or with intent to give the poison to somebody to cause death, and that is a homicidal. And lastly, undetermined poisoning. Undetermined poisoning is a problem of how poison was obtained and why it was administered. Or in other words, it's quite difficult to determine why or what is the reason of poison was given to the victim, or and why poison came from, and it and also relies on how was obtained and why it, it was administered. So this is where looking for undetermined questions. So let's move on to our last topic, which is the conditions modifying actions of poisons attributed to individuals. And first is the age and sex. Very good examples of this is yung napanood ko na news about sa magjowa na bumili ng milk tea sa milk tea shop, na kita na mas naunang umepekto yung poison sa babae kumpara sa lalaki, na alam naman natin na yung babae is which is mas mahina yung resistensya nila kumpara sa lalaki. So kapag bata naman, alam natin na mas highly sensitive kapag mas bata yung sensitive ang katawan. The second one is the habit. This person, male or female, has these untoward habits, let's say destructive habit, on a person with constantly habit. So both of them will be given a dosage of poison, and persons who died first will be the bad habit. So the third is the health. So given that person whose disease goes first or who died first and followed by the normal person. So the third is the idiosyncrasy. Simply means that each of us is to come to manifest that same reaction to poison. So basically that individual reactions affects the person who took a poison. So let's move on to food. Some are allergic to food, but some are not. When food becomes allergy, and definitely that food is a poison. And when food becomes source of allergy, and that is potentially harmful material, and that even cause death. And the next is the disease. Same through with the health. So the next is the sleep. So simply means that those people who are not sleep well will be the first affected by the harmful materials, likely this poison, compared to person who have the good night sleep or have been rested properly. And lastly, the exhaustion. Basically, those people who have been exhausted every day. Every day are those who are losing their immunity response or lower immunity, or simply those people who are the tiredly every time. Those people who are tiredly every time are those easily affected by the poison, or affected the poison, compared to person who are well rested. So that's it for the condition modifying action of poisons.